Hello, everyone. We are at the Do UI Next AMA here. Oh, my water nearly spilled now. But we are at the Do UI Next AMA. We have a really great set of questions in the document. And there is, again, FAQ at the end of the document with most common questions. Let's just start with the process and let's go one by one in the agenda. So, Paulina, you have the first question about do UI next.
Yes, so my question was, what's exactly accessibility first when we think about this? And do we have any automations for accessibility tests? So maybe I can sum up what we wrote in the meantime.
Yes,
So
please.
you mentioned you have the storybook, and there's no automated tests, accessibility tests right now. So what I'm suggesting and what we're using in GitLab UI is a test runner for Storybook that can be extended with Axe Playwright, and that runs the tests automatically for any story created. So no need for actually writing tests. It will do that automatically. It can be in as a job on a pipeline, blocking any merge requests, or run locally on demand. So I left a link to the issue I created some time ago for Duo UI. That could be used for Duo UI next as well for the same setup.
Wonderful. Yes. Thanks a lot for that. Definitely, we do want to take all the good bits from do UI and preserve them in do UI next. Um, the chain of the components, how the accessibility gets into the do UI next, I hope is clear from my answer there. So it goes all the way to the Rika UI, which used to be Radix. But with the accessibility tests, yes, that would be great. Like the best test is the test that doesn't need to be written. So we can, if we can use it, use Storybook's capabilities for that, that's even better. Thanks for the suggestion.
So, thanks.
Now we have Juan. I mean, we have question from Juan, but we don't have Juan, I think. So I'll verbalize for Juan. So Juan is asking, I'm trying to understand if the intention is to rewrite the UI code base in this new framework, or is this something that can live side by side with the code and components we already have, just providing a way to build new components faster while chipping away at converting the existing ones over time, perhaps. So, and yes, my answer to this is partially the intention is to write the UI code base, rewrite the UI code base in Do UI Next, because Do UI Next doesn't use GitLab UI, which is powering Do UI. So we have to. Uh, the the coexisting components would be interesting, but considering Dual UI Next is Vue 3 and current Dual UI is Vue 2, it's gonna be a bit challenging and unnecessarily complex to implement. So yes, Dual UI Next is the rewrite of Dual UI, but not so much a rewrite. I wouldn't use the word rewrite. It's completely different thing. It's completely different package. It doesn't have the goal to rewrite the UI. It has the goal to create bases to follow the modern designs that the UX team is working on much quicker and much simpler. That is the goal of the UI next, not to rewrite the UI. So, Austin, you have a follow-up question there.
Yeah, I just want to make sure when we're talking about
Yeah,
what is it that we're replacing in the code base, my understanding was
yeah,
like it's the Duo UI repo,
exactly.
not like GitLab UI repo
No,
or anything in like the main. Yeah, yeah.
no. I think we have to know where to stop. And yes, we will stop at the borders of Duo UI. We won't get into rewriting GitLab UI for now. Who
No, that makes
knows
sense. I think that
what's
was
gonna
what
happen in
can,
the future?
yeah, I think it's what make people antsy is they are like, when we talk about rewriting or updating the code base, it's like, but what part of the code base? And they may
Right.
not realize that's
So it's
fragmented to different
it's
pieces.
specific. It is specifically about the UI powering our AI functionality on the web, it is right now. It's the agentic Duo chat. On IDE, it is the GitLab agent platform. No, GitLab Duo agent platform. I always confuse all those words. So it's not about GitLab UI. It is about specifically Duo UI. So much smaller scope. Yes, Juan has the next question as well. So in the context of the web UI of chat, if we do work now applying style changes to Duo UI components, would those changes be transferable or reusable for corresponding Duo UI next components? Or would those changes be incompatible and we would need to style new corresponding components from scratch? So this is a very good question. Again, Duo UI next is not a rewrite of Duo UI. It is a completely different thing. So on one hand, it sounds scary because it implies that we need to write those styles again, right? But we're smart people. We won't write styles from scratch. We will just use the styles that are already there. The point is that Duo UI Next is built with the components intentionally moving us closer to the end result that is defined in the designs, both for the web and for the IDE. And it is much simpler to find and build the components for those designs from scratch than it is to adjust the existing Duo UI components to match those designs, because there is very little common between the current Duo UI and the designs that we have to implement, both for the web and for the IDE, except for just layout. Otherwise, things are looking quite differently. So it is just simpler and more efficient to start from scratch. And with ShadCN components, which power Duo UI Next, with the broad availability of open source, of open components for ShadCN, we can achieve the goal much quicker. So answering the question, no, we won't sort of reuse the components, but we will reuse the styles in terms of CSS, apparently, where it makes sense. But the Duo UI Next is built with those new designs in mind, first and foremost, not with the mind of rewriting Duo UI one-to-one. Tatiana, you have a question there.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question. It's a question from ignorant backend engineer, but do we need basically I'm asking for a specific thing. I need for the new side panel for Duo, I need a drop down for the model switch. So my question is, do we need to create this drop down? Do we need to wait for Duo UI Next to be fully released?
So this is a very good question. We discussed this with Plan Group a bit. So whatever you have to do now, you just continue doing this. But you have to be mindful of the timeline for Duo UI Next and the end goal. So Duo UI, current Duo UI provides the not actually Duo UI, the GitLab UI, which powers Duo UI, provides the drop-down component that you can use if you build the current interface, right? But be aware that we will get to this question next, I think, about the timeline for Duo UI Next. The Duo UI Next is intended to be entering web at the end of 18.4 milestone. This doesn't mean that we have to sit and wait for Duo UI Next. This just means that whatever work we put into the panel now in 18.4 might get replaced with Duo UI Next by the end of 18.4. It's that's technically how it is.
It kind of sounds like it's better just to sit and wait a little.
It might sound like this. To be honest, I will be ready to answer this question, whether we need to wait and sit and wait, or we have to proceed with the current Vue 2 implementation. I will be ready to answer next week. I've gained the access to create a new project for Duo UI Next only today, despite working with this for weeks. So that only today Duo UI Next got a new home. Even the pipeline configuration is crazy there. Everything is rad. So uh, the goal is sort of my goal is to set up the Duo UI Next project as a proper project and set up the entry point into the monolith for our Vue 3 application as soon as possible. And once that is done, I will be able to properly estimate when Duo UI components can power the side panel. Does this make sense?
Yep, thanks.
Cool. Thank you. Dylan.
Yeah, I think you might have answered my question. I know that it sounds like you're the only one working on this, but with respect to IDE integration with Duo UI Next, are we supposed to? Sorry about that. Hold on. Sorry about that. Should we wait for you? I guess this is a similar question to Tatiana's, but should we wait for you to implement this, or if we'd like to be enablers, or can we
That's
work in parallel building
that's
out the new components?
that's a very good question. So integration into IDE is much simpler than integration into the web, right? So with IDE, we just throw a new package. As much as I hate new packages, I'm fighting with reducing the number of packages in LSP, but we can create a new package, which is brand new Vue 3 application with TypeScript support, and just start using a Duo UI Next right there whenever it is ready. It takes more time and more rounds of review to do unbelievable to integrate Vue 3 into Vue 3 application into our monolith now. But it's much simpler in the language server. So if you can and wish to be enablers for this effort, that would be perfect. That would be amazing. And yes, we can jump on a call, let's say beginning next week to discuss the details. I have all these steps documented, what needs to be done, how to create a project for Duo UI Next. So it's not going to take a lot of time, but we can start playing with it quite soon.
Sound good?
Very well, thank you, John.
Do you want to address Austin's question first, maybe, just because he wants to circle back before I sort of
Oh,
mildly change the
okay.
topic?
I'm sorry, Austin.
Sure.
Could you
No
verbalize?
worries.
Thank you.
I just added it, so you didn't miss it, Dennis. Would you say it's reasonable, build with whatever is available currently, and then once the Duo UI Next components are available and digestible, then that'll be proliferated, but we don't want to hold back any of the
Right.
AI work that's
Yeah.
happening right now. It might be a little bit annoying, right? Like there might be some rework you have to do if you have an in-flight change, you have to update your code or update your MR if you run into conflicts, but like we don't want to hold back anything going on.
Exactly.
Okay.
And there is a reason, practical reason for that. So if we start doing this even with the Vue 2 components, we can iron out all the communication. We can iron out the GraphQL connection. We can iron out the data structure, because if we do it when we switch to Duo UI Next, this means that we will still need to do work in order to figure out all the communication channels, all the things that, because UI doesn't live in silo, right? UI needs to communicate with the data. So if we start implementing, even with Vue 2 components now, it will be easier to move to Duo UI Next once Duo UI Next is ready, because all the communication will be already settled. So I don't recommend sitting and just waiting, but I will have a better answer time-wise in the beginning of next week, I guess.
Thank you for the crystal clear delineation there.
Thank you. So yeah, John.
Yeah, sorry, Dice, you didn't get anything wrong. I just saw an opportunity before I derail the conversation to answer Austin's point. Yeah, so I'm just trying to get things straight here because I'm responsible for the timeline of the panel-based architecture, so the redesign with the AI panel on every page, and I'm trying to keep that timeline straight in my head. So you mentioned you're figuring out before when you answered Tatiana's question, you mentioned you're figuring out when it will be deliverable. So how will that align with the side panel redesign since that's targeted for 18.5? And this would have implications for both the design of the panel itself and for the redesign of the site in two panels, particularly if GeoUI Next owns the container of the panel, right? Because then it's got to sit alongside the panels that are defined under, I guess, GitLab UI and components within those. So I suppose to boil the question down, it's like it's important that we have like an idea of all of our dependencies and that
Mhm.
they're well mapped out in the project. And so if you don't have a date yet for when you would kind of merge this in, realistically, are we talking after 18.5? Because that's when we target to ship the side panel.
Uh, That's a very good question and very valid concern, John. Thanks for raising that. As I said, there will be a question from Juan about the timeline later on, but the plan is to bring the UI Next onto the web by the end of 18.4, which means before your planned release of the panel in 18.5, which technically means that there will be the reason for this sort of for this timeline to deliver it in 18.4 is first to reduce the amount of rewrites and changes for your team, and to ensure that we have one milestone before we go GA. We have one milestone to test and figure out all the things that need to be polished with Dual UI Next. So the idea is we want to bring Dual UI Next as soon as possible into the panel so that we reduce the rewrites, reduce the duplication of work. But it's definitely going to be there before the end of 18.5. And as I said, the current goal is end of 18.4. Does that answer the question?
Partially. And will it own the container of the panel or just the content within the panel
Uh,
itself? Say just, I mean, obviously that's the biggest part.
Right. So this is a very good question about the separation, where technically the container is going to be owned by Plan, right? Because the Plan needs to adjust all the views in order to accommodate that side panel thing. Toggling it, like opening it, closing it. I don't know whether it should be on the screen all the time or it should be closed or anything. That is on your team. Whatever is rendered within the panel, including the tabs, so Duo Chat, sessions, all things can be handled by Duo UI Next.
Sorry, so just to be clear, when you say owned by Plan, I mean, I it's
I,
going to be built in GitLab UI
no,
using
no,
GitLab UI components.
it's going to be built with whatever. From what I understand, Anastasia is building this. So whatever tool she finds suitable, it is going to live in the Vue 2 world. So it can be built with GitLab UI, with the I don't know, with plain HTML, with anything that you see fit for this purpose. We will inject Vue 3 application into the content of this panel, and that's
I
where
think
the
that's the answer I was looking for. Yeah, thanks.
okay. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Clarify on this. I think there's been a little bit of miscommunication around this. I met yesterday with the AI team, and we have discussed that from our side, we will also deliver the tabs of suggestion sessions and chat. Um, if we are discussing like embedding it into a container, in my understanding, and the collapsing and expanding also comes from within the panel. So it comes from the header of title. So that kind of brings me to the question. I feel like we need a little bit more communication on this
Sure.
because I'm sure that the AI team necessarily aware of how much Duo UNX will be involved in the panel. At least that was my understanding.
Can you please clarify what is the AI team?
I've spoken to Dasha yesterday,
Right.
as well as Janelle, and we have identified some clear handoff points for plan to their team. And that would include, other than collapsibility and what we've discussed before, that would also include the tabs such as suggestions, sessions, and chats. Obviously, it would just be a placeholder, it would not display any like proper UI, sorry, AI content within the panel, but we will just create the tabs to switch between those modes. Is that your understanding as well?
No. My understanding is that tabs are part of Duo UI Next. That's my understanding. We can do it differently. We can say that tabs should be built by plan. The reason why I think Duo UI Next is more suitable, because if we will need to set up any communication between the tabs, then it makes sense that the tabs live in the same application. They're not spread into separate applications. This is first part. The second part, if we are about to use Duo UI Next only for the content of each particular tab, but the tabs themselves live in View 2, this means that we will have to create at least three different View 3 applications, which makes not that much sense. So I would say that the whole interface, the whole panel, the content of the panel, not the container, but the whole content of the panel, including the tabs, should be driven by Duo UI Next, especially considering there is a component for that already available. So that's just more efficient, in my opinion.
I think we can maybe take it at a separate meeting. Maybe there's still some lines to figure out, because we've already built on our end the the navigation rail that goes on the right of the panel, because it also expands and collapses the panel. So that's part of the scope of
the collapsibility and expandability of the panel has nothing to do with the component implementation. It's just how the container reacts to different events. So Duo UI Next application, which is View 3 application, is going to emit events, and we can listen to those events in View 2 in monolith and do whatever we want with the container. Expand it, shrink it, remove it, close it, open it. The content, which is Duo UI Next powered, will just follow that no matter what. So expand, collapse, all that functionality is going to be driven by the container that contains these things. But I totally agree that we will have to take this separately, especially I think we have this bi-weekly call scheduled, and we can discuss more details about this. So we will figure out how this integration is supposed to be on the web. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we can take it offline. Janelle, could you help us as well with that? Denise, I'll need to be involved until we have those handoffs, until we have those defined, because I'm responsible for the timeline dependencies of the side panel project. So if you wouldn't mind, just go on ahead and sub me into the meeting. Thanks for your time.
Yep, thank you. Okay, so we are done with yes. Okay, Janelle.
Yeah, thanks. So I totally understand this engineering only change, but my understanding was there might be some subtle differences between sort of the AI components and the GitLab UI components. And since the Duo UI components, since Duo UI itself was a fork of GitLab UI, they were quite close. As we're moving further and further away in the engineering implementation, is there risk of visual drift between those components? It's going to create sort of like a schism in the product. And how do we manage that?
That's a very good question, and I will have to be honest, not the first time I hear this question, because this is the scary part. Like, we are moving away from the components that drive the whole web experience for GitLab into something new. But as I wrote in my comment, the Duo UI Next project is pure engineering effort in order to address engineering issues. Designers should not worry about engineers using that or another tool. Whether we use GitLab UI components or we don't, this doesn't mean that Dual UI Next shouldn't follow the design that is provided by the designers, right? So Dual UI Next is obliged to follow that, and Dual UI Next will do that, especially since I've already ran different tests about that. So Dual UI Next can use all of the design tokens from GitLab UI without using the GitLab UI components, but we can use the design tokens. And since Dual UI Next has much better and much more robust theming story, it will make theming simpler in Dual UI Next. But we should not worry about differences in the look and feel. The only thing that might happen is it should either be the same as with GitLab UI components, or it will be a bit better, because Shadcn components sometimes bring really nice user experience that we do not account for in GitLab UI components.
So implementing the same design, it can still feel slightly different. So at some point we may have to pull along GitLab
I think
if it's that much better, especially if it's that
think,
much better, then we should.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the evil plan. That at
embed
some
it
point
within and let it proliferate.
Yes. Dual UI Next is the small playground where we test, sort of battle test this idea. If it works, we might come to idea and to the conclusion that it just provides better basis, and we might go on and say, okay, let's use this to rewrite GitLab UI now. But this is way too early to talk about that, right? Right now, the problem is that we have to solve engineering problems. Dual UI Next does solve those, but it shouldn't mean that the design has to suffer from the engineering decisions, right? So designs should be the same. There might be slight deviations, but we will discuss those with designers on case-by-case basis. Yep. Good. Mark?
Do we have? I put it as
Mark,
read
yes.
only. I think, I'll read it out. I don't want to take us too far down this road, but I think spoken as a designer, I think thinking more about what this enables for design rather than limitations that it places, because it does seem like, that there'll be more ability for cross-platform nativeness with this structure.
We'll talk about enablement and restrictions and limitations in one of the questions. Hopefully, we will get to the list of this agenda today. But yes, I think Austin asks about how the UX team can help move this further. So we'll get to discussing this in more details in a bit. So let's just move on, if you don't mind, Mark. Okay.
Please.
Good, thank you. So Juan has the next question again. I will verbalize. I understand that the goal is to achieve efficiency and speed by using the provided component library. Can you elaborate on the extent of customization from both design and functionality behavior that the library offers? The reason I ask is to see if the UX team should be creating designs within the confines of what is possible, given the potential limitations of the new framework. This is the one about the limitations. Or if this is completely a lower level abstraction that engineers have at hand, but really they have full free rein to make any design a reality. As cheesy as it might sound, I always say that there is nothing impossible. It's just a matter of time and resources. So front-end engineers are capable of delivering any design that the UX team will come up with. But Next doesn't bring limitations. First of all, it's not a framework. It's the library, and it doesn't bring limitations. It brings the opportunities, and the opportunities and possibilities for this process are actually much broader than the current Dual UI. And I believe that using Dual UI Next, designers will be more empowered to follow the UX, the designs that we currently have, rather than being limited either on engineering or on the designer's side. The problem is that this is the balance that we have to always keep in mind. So there is current Duo UI, and the question is, why do we need Duo UI next if we already have Duo UI? Can't we continue using Duo UI? The answer is yes, we can. The problem is how much effort and how much time it will take to make the current Duo UI look and work according to the designs that we have to build. Inevitably, we will come to the conclusion that there has to be compromise, because currently working with Duo UI is not very comfortable from the engineering perspective. So this means that moreover, over and over, we will be asking for compromises with the design. So we won't get optimal engineering experience, and we won't get optimal design at the end. I believe that ShadCN as the base instead of GitLab UI will give us much more power and much more freedom to deliver exactly the designs that we want to deliver in order to compete with our in this crazy market where we are. So I don't think there are limitations. I think that the latter part of Juan's question, that engineers will have full freedom to make any design a reality. That's the scenario that we are heading towards. But I'm biased, so take it with a pinch of salt. But I believe that Duo UI Next will make working with designs much simpler and much easier and much more approachable in terms of time and quality than the current Duo UI. Yes, right. There is one more comment that is important on this point, is that when it comes to, so I talked about engineering. Now let's talk about the design, right? So the design, the point of Duo UI Next is to not only solve the engineering problems. There is the third problem, which is themability. Theming current Duo UI is quite complex. So I have this example where we have text gray 500, and for example, to integrate Duo UI driven Duo Chat into IDE, we had to say that text gray 500 is something to the effect of blue or anything like this. That I like how Jeff called it in one of the comments on Slack, whack-a-mole with the colors. And that's definitely something I would like to avoid. That's not fun. That's very frustrating, and that's why Duo UI Next is very strict. It is opinionated library. It doesn't let you go bananas and do whatever you want. It sets patterns. It sets restrictions on how you deliver things, and it's very important because it's built to move fast. But when we move fast, it's very easy to make mistakes. So Duo UI Next takes care of controlling the quality and making sure that while we move fast, while it enables us to move fast, it does provide some guardrails that wouldn't allow us to get into constant incidents or constant bug fixing process. So it is very strict in terms of not allowing using utility classes with color information. It's very strict with introducing CSS variables and semantic utility classes in order to be able to theme Duo UI Next in any environment, web, IDE, different IDEs, different visual themes in different IDEs. So we have plenty of things to work with there. And in order to make design even better, so Frederick, I think, selected this. So there are available Figma kits for ShadCN. So if our designers want to see how good or bad it is to work with ShadCN, we can start incorporating ShadCN in our designs if we want to. But there are also paid versions of Figma kits for ShadCN where we can not only build the interfaces, but we can also export the whole themes. And Duo UI Next has the clear separation of responsibilities. So by using utility classes, front-end engineers are capable of building interfaces with just blocks, while designers can go and build themes without touching the components, can build themes using the design tokens, using colors, using whatever it is needed, without updating the components. So it's very good separation in Duo UI Next. Of course, there might be some exceptions, but the basis is there. We have to just embrace it and see how far we can get there. Yes. And again, question from Juan, who's still not here. I know some direction and plenty of demos have been provided to engineers using the YouTube videos. Thanks for that. Thanks to me, probably. I'm wondering about the next steps. Do you already have a sense of timeline or progression for implementation? Just wondering where this is at and what the ask might be to various groups moving forward. Again, I've already verbalized that my very optimistic timeline is the end of 18.4. We have to have Duo UI Next. Driving chat and apparently sessions. We have the chat with Fred on this tomorrow on the web. So these two things should be driven by Duo UI Next by the end of 18.4. There might be some compromise for 18.4, but 18.5 we will work very close with plan and with Duo UI Next will be there, will be on the web for real. So that's the timeline. Austin, you have the comment there.
Yeah, so an example of like where this can get murky is currently like the sessions page in the
Yep.
GitLab monolith is built just using our typical structure. And we're in similar way, like how we have like the pipelines view, which everybody can see. We're trying to personalize that and only show you what are relevant to you for sessions as a user in the AI panel. So I think the logic there is we reuse that snippet of code in a different place, but
Yep.
then the question probably becomes, well, then what do we build that page with? Do we import GitLab/UI or do we import GitLab/Duo UI? You know how that kind of goes.
Right.
It's not as easy as saying like, oh, it's Duo Chat, which clearly lives in this AI panel, it clearly lives in the VS Code extensions, but it is more of a murky feature where it's more designed to be in the monolith and not to be pulled somewhere else, if that helps clarify.
Yes, we started discussing this with Frederick yesterday, and we will continue doing this tomorrow. We have some ideas of how to do this, but Frederick left the comments there, so I will let Frederick answer.
Yeah, thanks. So, I mean, this is, as I said in my comment, I think this is a great observation, and I think that, like, from where I'm standing, the biggest thing to clarify, and we're going to take a look tomorrow with Dennis, is like, how can we enable, how can we enable an engineer to make the decision as to whether they want to contribute to this tech stack from within the GitLab org project, or whatever it makes sense to be inside the actual GitLab Next project, right? Because it's kind of packaged as two in one. It's like, here's this new external library package that you can reuse, and also here's a new supported tech stack at GitLab, right? So I think this is a case of like this session is an app that lives in GitLab.org that needs to migrate over to this new tech stack that can then be used in two places, right? It can be used as its own single page application inside the automate sessions, and it can be used from within the panel in the tabs. And that's kind of the only place it can go. If we were like, oh, we have to move this over to the package, then the problem becomes like, well, this isn't a reusable package. This is extremely business logic heavy. And then instead of like accelerating the development, it could slow it down. So and I think that then this is a great opportunity to be like, okay, well, if you want to use this tech stack without being inside the UI package, how do you consume that package in your like business logic app? So we're gonna take a look at that and see what that looks like.
Yes, we'll discuss this in more details, but we're aware of this problem. Thanks for flagging it, Austin. We are thinking about this. We are considering options, and I'm pretty sure we will find some solution to that. Okay. Jeff.
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
So as you've heard, there's quite a few dependencies and risks that we're all concerned about on the like Duo Agent Platform GA side of things. So I'm curious when you anticipate having like an actual project breakdown with issues and epics. Like we want to be able to connect the dots so that when we're reporting on this every single week to executive leadership, we can very clearly state like, this particular functionality is connected to this work in Duo UI Next, and that timeline for delivering that component or that functionality is X. Um, so do
Mhm.
you have an update on when you expect to have that available?
Yes, as I write in my comment, I hope to get to this next week because right now I was the only one working with this, so it didn't make sense to create epics and issues for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I see the need for this from the transparency perspective, and considering so many parties involved in the process, it just makes sense to start doing this. So I'll get to this next week.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, I mean, my goal is not to understand like implementation level issues. It's the big picture stuff so that we can see kind of the major project themes. And if this is going to be something that's part of the Duo Agent Platform GA, we can seek additional support for you. So, let me know what you need. If there's additional help on the project planning side, we can put that request in to leadership to see if we can get extra
Cool.
folks helping
Thank
out on
you.
this.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, the upper management is aware of this effort, and yeah, we're we're kind of on the same page with this effort. So, well, I will start creating the issues so that we could have the consolidated communication between us and the upper management of how things are, where we are, what do we expect, what they should expect, or what they should not expect. So, well, I will get to these things next week, and we can get into more details once the first issues epics show up. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Austin.
Sorry, I need to find the unmute button. So I'm kind of teeing you up for this one, Dennis. Can you help me better articulate why this is needed for the GA release of the Duo Agent platform?
Right.
As you can hear, there are a lot of work streams going on, a lot of effort just to try and hit our deliverables for the tight timelines of when we're trying to hit GA. I would love for you to help just clarify like why this is so important to do right now.
Right. So this is a very good question because I'm asking myself the same question every single day when working with this. Do we really need it now? The point is, as I said, we are we are not required to do it now. We are not forced to do it now, but we cannot move quick enough with the current tools. We cannot deliver the quality that is expected, in particular from the design. We cannot deliver that quality with the current tools. And we had this issue at every milestone of Duo Chat, for example, when we were going to beta, when we're going to the experimental release. When it comes to Duo UI, the backend engineers do a great job, but on the front end side, we because I'm not saying that we do bad job on the front end side. What we do is because of all these dependencies that are created now, we just don't have time around a milestone when we have to move really quick. We don't have time to control things, whether they were propagated to the customers or not. As an example, Friday before experimental release, actually like the day of the release or Thursday was it, we figured out that Duo UI wasn't updated in IDE for 3 weeks because of all these dependencies, because of the things that we just don't have time to control everything. Like We all want to deliver quality. We all want to deliver new features in order to fit the milestones. But controlling things, we don't have enough, not even tooling. Like we just don't have time to ensure that things go the right way. When it comes to design, theming is crucial. Theming story with current Duo UI is not optimal, specifically because of GitLab UI dependency. GitLab UI has never been meant to be used in IDE, right? GitLab UI is always and has always been a web first library. And a lot of the things that we do there do not assume any other environment, anything other than monolith. So we cannot move quick enough with those tools. We cannot ensure quality with those tools when we move quickly. So that's why I don't really want to get into exactly the same things that we had around beta, around experimental releases. I don't want to get to those around GA because that's already too late. When we are going to get to GA, we want things to be ready, preferably about 2 weeks before, so that we would have this smooth and controlled, not like rushing, updating different dependencies. So again, we are not obliged to do this move now, but it will make things much simpler. The move itself is not trivial. There is no doubt there, but we have to do it, and it's never going to be easy. It's never going to be sort of breeze. It will require a lot of coordination, a lot of planning, but we have to do this, and I would much rather do it sooner than later, so that we don't have like text overfloating in chat and different visual things that we just don't have time to fix. We just have to prevent those things with proper approach, proper tooling. I believe we can reduce the number of visual bugs and improve overall experience. So I would say my personal attitude is we must do this for GA, but technically we shouldn't. We can wait if that's what we want. But I would really like us to move now.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand the pressure to try and modernize things so it can be more adaptable. But yeah, I think that's the ultimate question that is causing some pauses. Like, why not, let's say, delay until after 18.6 to do this and get it all tied together? What I'm hearing from you is if we don't do this for the GA release of the Duo Agent platform, things like our IDE extensions just won't feel right. Like the cohesive aspect of how the agentic Duo chat feels between the web versus VS Code versus a JetBrains IDE is just not going to feel great. So if we're okay with that, then sure, kick it down the road. But if we're not, then like you should try and fit this in, is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly. It is going to be the same compromise as we have now. So experience in IDE is kind of like the web page still, and the experience on the web is still kind of like Duo chat has been glued on top of otherwise polished pages. So that's the thing that I would like us to fix, address as soon as possible. And think about this. When we talk about current Duo UI with GitLab UI, we're talking about proprietary components. If the proprietary component is not found for that or another design element, for that or another feature, we have to go into GitLab UI and build that component before it gets consumed by Duo UI, before it gets consumed by Monolith or IDE. When it comes to ShadCN, ShadCN is a very popular tool in the front-end world. And there are so many publicly available components for ShadCN that we can just go and use those components for our purpose without the need to build those components from scratch. We can just go and build interfaces. We can polish those components later on if they are not 100% correct. But we have much more freedom and much more, like when it comes to the resources, we are always limited in resources. who can and have time to implement things. So having broad ecosystem of readily available components is really is a big plus for us, I think. So again, we can stay on the current tools. They won't feel good for GA because we can get away with that for beta, for experimental, but for GA, it has to be something really, really sleek and polished, in my opinion. And I don't believe we will be able to achieve this with current Duo UI, unfortunately. Aaron.
My baby started when you said my name. Yeah, so my initial question was you sort of touched a little bit on it briefly, but it was around how we're going to be passing state into the Duo UI Next components with quite a bit of code around state management and IDs. And I'm wondering how we can quickly enable usage here so we can start dogfooding Duo UI Next and ID.
Right. That's a very good question. So Duo UI Next is very simple. It's just the components library. It doesn't carry any business logic, right? So business logic is always driven by the consumer project, be it web, be it language server, and that's how Duo UI, how agentic Duo Chat is implemented now, right? So it doesn't have any internal logic. So all the states can be the same. Also, we are not. I don't think we do we. I think we use Pinia for flow, but we don't use Pinia for chat. So for chat is going to be simple. We just continue not using Pinia for chat, and that's it. Or we can just go on and use something. Oh, okay. Pinia is in both. Okay. Thank you, Andre, for correction. The last time I checked, I think it was different, but okay, we use Pinia, so we can just upgrade Pinia to work with Vue 3, and we will continue using the same state management. As I said, for LSP, integration is very straightforward. It's a bit more tricky for the web. Long story short, integration into the web is done using the web component. So the custom element wraps around the Vue 3 application, and then this custom element is injected into the web page of the monolith wherever we need that. The Vue 3 application is set up with the properties passed to the custom element, and custom element emits events that the consumer project is listening to exactly 100% exactly like it is done with Duo UI Duo Chat component now. Vuex in the chat as well. Yes, Vuex in the Vue 2 part. It's not part of the Duo UI, Thomas. So Vuex is on top, and Vuex can sit there on top and manage the state. What it does then, it sends the props down to Duo Chat, and that's exactly how it's gonna continue working. It's just literally in the tanuki_bot/app.vue component, we just swap Duo Chat component with Duo Next custom element. But the properties, the events, all the same. Hopefully not all the same, because right now we have more than 20 properties on Duo Chat component. I would like to change that, but that's another story. The principle is exactly the same. Does that answer the question, Aaron?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Then just my next question is a bit of a simpler one. It's around theming. So for theming, how we think about the transition in my head, if we're moving to this Duo UI Next and we're going to be more opinionated, is that going to be drawing for users of the beta essentially? Is like when we have the existing themes, how's that switchover going to work?
Good question. But it's actually going to be quite contrary. It's going to be less opinionated than Duo UI, than the current Duo UI. So Duo UI Next doesn't do anything for theming apart from using standard Tailwind 4. And Tailwind 4 is really good for theming. We just set the CSS variables. So I cannot demo this because I've started playing with my GDK, and always every time I do this, it fails for me. But the way it works, for example, for the web integration, So the theme in Duo UI Next integration into the monolith contains about 30 lines of different CSS variables, which are linked. This is the cool thing, which are linked to the CSS variables defined in GitLab UI. Again, we do not use GitLab UI components, but we do use GitLab UI design tokens, which power Tailwind theme of Duo UI Next. And with this, technically, even for the dark themes, we can continue using exactly the same CSS variables because those variables get switched for the dark theme on the monolith side. And we just piggyback that. So theming is much simpler. Moreover, we can create and distribute themes for Duo UI Next just like we will do with the components. It can be part of the registry. But for every integration, we will just create the set of CSS variables. And that's where what I mentioned, I think, in the next question from Austin, how UX team can support this effort. The more the more we move from SCSS variables in GitLab UI to actual design tokens, because right now GitLab UI is the mix of SCSS variables and Tailwind design tokens. The more we move to the design tokens, the more Duo UI Next will be able to consume from GitLab UI and power the interface built with Duo UI Next. Right now, only the colors are tokenized in GitLab UI, but if we tokenize paddings, border radiuses, all of these things, then they will be just fetched by Duo UI Next via CSS variables, and that's just going to work.
Yeah, and to add to that, there is, I think there might be even MR right now to add in padding, border radius, and spacing into design tokens.
Yeah,
should come
wonderful.
soon.
And then the Duo UI Next components will look even more close to GitLab UI components.
Okay.
At least in the web, because that's what we want to do on the web, right? In the IDEs, they will look completely different.
So I guess that leads to the next question, I think the last one from me. So yeah, in terms of UX being able to support and be an enabler of this, I think I've communicated to you is like we don't lower the bar just because of how things are implemented in the code base. We're not unfamiliar to a button rendering from Haml or from Ruby or from Vue or however it's built. So what can we be doing from the UX side to make sure that we can keep that bar of, making the product still feel seamless in the monolith without having to, chase on the edge cases?
Thanks for this question. And one of the things that I've already mentioned, to move GitLab UI more towards proper Tailwind design tokens rather than sit on the SCSS variables. That will bring more knowledge, more context, if you wish, to Duo UI Next about GitLab UI theming. Also, if designers would be willing to play with Figma kits for ShadCN to see what components are available, how those components work, that would be great. So designers just build awareness about ShadCN ecosystem, about the components available there. That would be great, because then we would speak the same language again when we discuss that or another component, combination of components. And as I said, the paid Figma kits even export the whole themes. That might be useful as well. But technically, also the thing is that I mentioned this. I'm sorry, I'm taking a bit more time, but I will finish soon. So the good point about Duo UI Next is that it has very clear separation between front end responsibilities and designers' responsibility. Technically, if we want this separation, so front engineers are empowered to build interfaces with just blocks using the semantic classes, and then designers can come in and say, okay, we want reshuffle colors. We want to change something here. For example, we want to deviate from GitLab, from standard GitLab UI classes or GitLab UI theming for this part. So designers will have more opportunities to play with styling, with visual things, but also considering Duo UI Next doesn't have proprietary utility classes like GitLab UI does. So any designer can read Tailwind documentation and implement anything in Duo UI Next with utility classes, interaction, animations, transformations, all of that stuff strictly based on the Tailwind documentation to enhance the experience of those components. So just now, as I said, I started the project. I finally got the home for this project, and it will be publicly open for everybody, and people can start looking into this and get the sense of how do UI Next is wired and how it works, where to step in, what to enhance, and so on.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. I know for some of the paid Figma libraries, we have to request access to those things.
Yeah.
I probably would not myself advocate for, let's say, like using the shadcn like button as an example. I would probably advocate for using the GitLab UI button, but like maybe where you're illustrating is like we may not have a component. Let's say like the slider is not something we have in pajamas, but if you need a slider for whatever reason, there is an option to use one, and that would be where you would pull from Duo UI instead specifically.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. It's just to be aware of what is part of shadcn. So yes. Okay, we are at time. Thank you very much for attending, and thank you for all the questions. I will keep everybody updated on the progress. I will start, as mentioned, I will start creating the issues and epics next week. I will also share the links to the Duo UI Next project. Actually, it is linked in some of the comments in the agenda document. So Duo UI Next project, and I will start pushing the integration points to the monolith for now. At the same time, as Dylan suggested, I would like to see editor extensions to be the enablers of Duo UI Next in the language server. So if that's possible, that would be great. We can chat about this more next week, for example, and we'll see how fast we can get. I still have end of 18.4 as my personal milestone for this effort, but we'll see how fast we can get there. Thank you very much and have a good one. Thank you.